Hello, my name is Kayla Schapp. I'm the ambassador for the Healthy Initiative Group of Little Rock. I am here to talk to the Friends of the Environment group about free range farming and why it does matter when you make the choice to buy your meat from organic or free range farms. To help you make a better choice, I'm going to briefly talk about both confinement farming and free range farming. I'm going to discuss the animal treatment, the impact on the environment, and why you should buy your meat from organic farms. First, I'm going to cover confinement farming and or feedlot farms. I'm going to talk about the animal welfare and treatment, the vaccinations and antibiotic concerns that are growing, and then the impact that these farms have on the environment. So the first thing that I'm going to cover is the cruel treatment of the animals. These animals that grow up on confinement farms, they don't really get treated very well, whether it be chickens or cows or pigs. They are all living in these very cramped cages and these very cramped buildings. There are actually no federal laws in place to protect animals that live on these types of farms. You can't turn a farmer in for animal abuse if a chicken was pecked to death or if a baby cow got, stomped to death in a cage. The laws don't cover that. As you can see by the informative, the animals live in very, very tight spaces. They are cramped, they are uncomfortable, they live in cages, they are born in a cage, they're raised in a cage, they spend their entire life living in a cage, and they don't have the cage to themselves. They are usually in one tiny cage with several animals. As you can see here, one of these chicken cages holds 5 to 10 birds, and this is full-grown chickens. That is not very comfortable. And when they're living in these types of spaces, the animals don't have room to exercise and move around. Um, they don't have any place to get away from aggressive animals. The farmers actually will trim down the chicken beaks so that they don't peck each other to death because they can't get away from the aggressive pen mates. I do not think that is good treatment at all, and I can imagine if you were to tell that to anybody, they would agree. Um, Also, some animals are just plain killed because they're not the appropriate, I guess, product that the farmer's looking for. For example, for the chickens, male chicks are usually killed and ground up into animal feed that's turned around and given to other livestock. But the farmers don't want male chickens because they don't offer any product for them. The females lay eggs, and the females are usually the ones that we buy to eat for meat. Also, when animals live in these tight living quarters, disease can spread very quickly. If one animal is sick, it would not take very long for the entire building to be contaminated with the same illness. Um, and this is a concern, and as you will see later, a problem because there are more antibiotics being used for these animals to control the spread of disease. The next thing I want to touch on is the environmental waste. Um, these confinement farms produce a lot of waste. There's a lot of animals in these buildings, and they all produce feces and urine and vomit and what other body fluids. And this is a huge amount of waste at one time going into the environment. It leaches into the soil. It can damage, the growth of plants. It can damage the growth of the wildlife. It leaches into the water. The fish and the aquatic wildlife will die, and the rivers and creeks and lakes and things that are impacted by this are not able to support life anymore. I can remember as a kid growing up that we had, several creeks that we would go to in the summer. We would, pack a lunch, hang out, everybody just have a good time. And then several of the chicken farms from Tyson moved in the area and contaminated the water, and you couldn't even hang out by the water because it would make you sick. It was contaminated with Shigella and E. coli and things like that. according to the Chicago Tribune, there's been whole communities that have been polluted by these confinement type farmings. The Chesapeake Bay has been polluted, and Yakima Valley in Washington has actually been polluted by nitrogen waste from these types of farms. And as you can see, one pig can make up to 17.5 pounds of manure and urine in one day. And there are usually hundreds of pigs in these pens and these confinement type farms. That is a lot of waste. It's very expensive. As you can also see, $34.7 billion is what kind of damage is done by these types of farms. I don't think that this is really exploited on the news a lot, but I feel like it's something that should be discussed, because if we destroy the environment and the environment can't support plants or life, and the waterways are damaged, then we are in big trouble. And the last thing I want to touch on with confinement farming is the antibiotic and vaccination use. There are some advantages of this. For example, herd immunity. When you vaccinate one animal, you provide herd immunity for the rest of them. It's, for example, like when we get our flu shots, we're protecting others. You might not necessarily need it. You may be healthy and young and may never get the flu, but you're getting the flu shot to protect your grandmother or your new baby cousin or your immunocompromised friend. And that's the same principle here with the animals. The antibiotics and vaccinations also prevent disease, which is very important to farmers. They don't want to lose any of their animals because that means a loss in money. And when one animal catches a disease in this confinement farm, it spreads very quickly. And when one animal is sick, in the next few hours, you have hundreds of animals that are sick. One that I put under advantage and disadvantage is that animals grow quicker with antibiotics and hormones. This is an advantage because the farmers are getting money quicker. They're getting these animals from birth to slaughter in 6 months. The disadvantage is that these animals are going from slaughter to birth in 6 months. That is unnatural. They're getting this product out quicker. And it's actually been shown that when there's more to consume, people will consume more. If something's, or I guess a better way of saying it, if something's readily available to buy, to eat, to do, people will do it. And this puts us at an increased risk of protein overabundance. You get increased increased fatty meat consumption, which leads to increased cardiovascular risk down the road. But back to advantages. Another advantage of vaccinations are human populations can actually benefit from these. For example, there is a germ called Brucella abortus. It actually is prevalent in rural communities in like the Middle Eastern part of the world. It does spread from cattle and sheep to people, and it has been shown that when these animals are vaccinated against Brucella abortus, that the incidences of people catching this disease decrease as well. Brucella abortus can cause chronic health issues in liver and spleen, and so eradicating this, especially in third world countries where medication and modern medicine isn't a big thing, is really important. Some disadvantages of antibiotics and vaccinations is the increased hormone use. Hormones are usually given with antibiotics, and it's been shown that they lead to cancer. There's some controversy with people thinking that increased hormone use and consumption leads to, earlier puberty stages in boys and girls. You're seeing your child go through puberty at, 9 and 10 now instead of 12 or 13 like they're normally supposed to do. And then another thing that's kind of scary is the more we give antibiotics to animals, the more we are contributing to antibiotic resistance in humans. Antibiotic resistance is a big deal right now. There's a lot of bad bugs out there, like Staphylococcus aureus or Pseudomonas that cause, skin and tissue infections. It can cause meningitis. It can cause pneumonia. And some of our antibiotics don't fight this anymore because the bugs are resistant to it. And giving antibiotics to our livestock can help increase their resistance. Now I'm going to talk about free-range farming or organic farming. These animals are not kept in a pen or crammed into a warehouse or barn. They are raised on a usually a large open space. They are out in the elements, but usually a farmer will provide a shelter for them. They have room to run. They can escape an aggressive animal or predator, and they are out in the sunshine. This all usually leads to better quality meat, which leads to better health outcomes for us. The animals have room to run and exercise, and this usually decreases the amount of fat in the meat, and that is good for us. Less fatty meat means less cardiovascular risk. The animal fat won't slowly build up in our arteries and clog them. It's better for our health. It's also been shown that eggs from free-range hens contain more vitamin D, and this is especially important because more people are spending time inside, playing video games, watching TV, hanging out on their phones, and they don't get the vitamin D from the sun. So any way you can get your vitamin D is important. Organic milk and grass-fed beef also have higher levels of omega-3, which are important. They are a healthy fat. They help bring down the bad cholesterol. They help boost your good cholesterol. And the animals that are raised on organic farms have been shown to have higher levels of that. All of this means better health outcomes for the consumers that purchase the meat and products from organic farms. Another point I want to touch on is environment is also healthier. Usually organic farms do not produce a large amount of waste at one time that is just thrown into our environment, and usually the animal waste is used for fertilization of other parts of the farm, which when you use all the products that you can from all parts of the animal, it's very good. You're wasting less and using more, and that's really what we want to get behind. So in summary, confinement farming is bad for the environment. It's bad for health outcomes. You have higher fat in your meat. The animals aren't able to exercise or full of antibiotics and vaccinations. They're fed, poor food. And all of this leads to a decreased quality of meat that is bad for us. The animals are also treated cruelly. There's no protection from mistreatment. They may be harmed in a cage. They may be purposely harmed by the farmer to get more product. And all of this just means confinement farming really should not be supported. Free-range farming is better. We use all the product of the animal. We use the waste for fertilization of other crops. We use the meat. The meat and the eggs from these animals have been shown to be better for us. They're higher in omega fats. They're higher in vitamin D. They are less. You have less risk of cardiovascular events with these. And then you also see improved animal treatment. The animals have room to escape predators. They are usually seen as happier. According to NPR, these cows were saved from a confinement farming and they were being transferred to live on an organic farm, and they were literally jumping for joy. They were seen jumping over a log and just running really fast. And this has also been shown in just certain times of the days. Cows get happy and they like to run and jump, and I think that is awesome. Why shouldn't anybody or any animal live out their life that way? So I hope that I made a good impression on why we should support organic farming. The more that we support it, the bigger the business gets and the better treatment the animal gets. It's better for the animal, it's better for us. Here are some slides of my references, and if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. Thank you for your time and enjoy your evening.